I was talking to my friends about this, and I was asking them, what kind of questions do you want to know so I can ask Kit?
Nice.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, girls.
And the feedback that I got, they were a lot to do with why men, or a lot of men, I know women do as well, but the men that I know or knew, a lot of them love to experiment with drugs. And I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. It's not really a dating question, but I guess it is because it affects your dating life, right?
Of course.
So, yeah. Do you have any insight into that?
That's a good question. I guess what I would ask is, when you say experiment with drugs, would it be they want to experiment with their partner, they experiment on their own and then try and bring it to their partner, they just do it on their own and trying to pretend that they don't do that with said girl? Like, in what capacity are we talking about?
Okay, so one example that we were discussing, take a guy and a girl, they've been together for years, and then he starts going out a lot, he starts going to raves, this and that, but the girlfriend doesn't know that he's doing drugs at these raves and etc. etc.
Yes.
So it's like, around her, he's still the same person, but at these raves and whatever he goes to and wherever he does it, he takes drugs.
Right.
And obviously that we know drugs affect your brain. Like you're not the same person anymore after you've taken it for a prolonged period. So in that situation, why do guys do it, number one, and why do you hide it from your partner?
Yeah, good question. I think there's two things with this. I think the first thing, there's one kind of simple answer and there's one much kind of deeper answer. So I'll start with the simple one. The first thing is that if he suddenly started getting into it, he could be using it to cope with something that he feels he doesn't feel, he's maybe not comfortable enough to be that vulnerable to share with her. So he could be going through a struggle, going through a stress, and he's using substance to cope with that, because a lot of the time when people are using it in a way to cope with things, it's because using substance like drinking, getting high, it kind of forces you to be in the present moment. And that's why it's so cool, right? Because you can't be thinking about your stresses or the negative emotions you have towards something. It keeps you in the moment, in the high, right? So, and maybe whatever it is that's an issue in his life, maybe he's scared to open up to her. You know what I mean? And maybe it could be he lacks a bit of courage in that because he thinks maybe she won't accept it, when really she would. Because a lot of the time women are like, we want to know, like, because if I care about you, I want to be there for you.
Yeah, you can work on it together.
Exactly. But I think because a lot of guys have maybe done that prematurely before and it's not been received well, it makes them very apprehensive to do that unless they're sure that the girl is like a real ride or die for them. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And that's his own journey and his own growth. The deeper thing I'd say is, if a guy was in a relationship and he starts doing that, usually he was entertaining that scene before to some degree. And it can happen where a guy engages in something that wouldn't be considered like a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
But then he meets this woman and he wants to be a better man for her. So then he stops entertaining that.
Okay.
But then the issue is, there's this concept that I've kind of grown to understand about human beings, and that there is a light wolf and a dark wolf inside of us.
Okay.
And we do different actions and behaviors in life that feed those different wolves. So good actions like helping your friends, giving to charity, maybe giving money to a guy on the street.
Small acts of kindness.
Yeah, that's like good. That's like good food for the light wolf. That's what feeds the light wolf. Food for the dark wolf are the things that indulge in our own self-fulfilling desires.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So things would be like taking drugs, alcohol, gambling, fighting, women. For guys, it tends to be one of those five things.
Yeah.
Like, when someone says, when we say, like, what's your vice? Like, be like, oh, what's your vice? My vice is I love going for a drink, or my vice is I love getting high on the weekend, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So a lot of people's vice, that's food for the dark wolf inside of them. And I think what can happen is when a guy meets a really good woman that he gets into a relationship with, he wants to, because he wants to be a better man for her in the relationship, he wants to not feed that dark wolf inside of him anymore.
Yeah, so he kind of traps himself.
Right. Because he's like, cool, I'm not going to feed that side of me anymore. I'm not going to feed that dark wolf. I'm going to starve it and it's going to die. But it never dies.
Yeah.
Because it's a part of you, right?
Yeah.
It's a part of you. And so I think what can happen is when you try and starve that dark wolf, it just gets more hungry and hungry and hungry, and eventually it comes back with a vengeance. So then out of nowhere, suddenly he's going out to parties to doing these raves, and he's taking cocaine, and he's, smoking weed, and he's doing E, and he's doing MDMA, all of this stuff. And she's like, yo, where did this come from? We've been together for like 2 years. You've been so clean, and now this has just come out of come out of nowhere. And a lot of the time it's because that side of himself that he'd been trying to starve, that dark wolf side, has come back with a vengeance. And that doesn't make it okay. But I think part of our maybe evolution of consciousness in relationships that we have is understanding, okay, I recognize that this is dark wolf food for me.
Yeah.
How do I keep it on a tofu diet that keeps it at bay, but also doesn't jeopardize my relationship? Does that make sense? That's a very long-winded way, but I kind of felt like I had to go deep into that.
No, it was a good analogy.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like maybe self-awareness plays a big part here.
100%. So it's like, okay, if for example him going to a rave and just getting high off his face is his dark wolf food, which is a certain lifestyle, it could be, okay, what can you do? Maybe you go out with friends and I don't know, maybe you'll share a joint with someone, and that keeps it at bay. You do that once every couple of months. You're like, cool, that satisfies it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then you have to decide, okay, is that kind of lifestyle, is that person that I would choose or not? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I think a common issue with that is it's, for some people, you're already too far in. So
can be.
Then that's when people start to think, oh, I don't like it, but I've been with this person for this amount of time. I may as well just let it slide. But I think that's where a lot of people go wrong.
I agree.
Yeah, you shouldn't let things slide if you're not happy with it.
I agree. I think how you approach it with this person can really make a difference as to what inspires them to make a change. So I think, and there's no right or wrong way. Is there a right or wrong way? I would say right or wrong, but I think there are ways that are more effective. Yeah. So if you go to this person like, hey, you've been raving, you've been doing this stuff, I don't like it, change up your otherwise I'm gone.
Yeah, I don't like that approach.
And it's kind of like, that's one way to approach it. And that might work on a few people, but then all you're actually doing is essentially trying to ask him to enforce the situation he was in before that brought him to that point, because he's going to feel trapped again. But if it's a point of, hey, look, I love you, I care about you, I've noticed this is something you've been doing and I really don't like it, but is there something we can find together that's going to help satisfy that need of yours?
Much better approach.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's up to him to make that change, make that shift. Do you know what I mean?
That's the thing, because some people, well, I'm a woman, so I'm going to speak from a woman's perspective.
Go for it.
So some women might just like you said, the approach number one, get really angry and frustrated that this has happened, whatever, understandable.
Yeah, of course.
But again, wrong approach. The second approach was more loving and caring and considering, like, I can understand that this is something you want to do. Can we work on it together? Like, let's do something about it. And then I think the key part is, if not, then what do we do? And so where do we go from here?
Of course. So in that sense, I would say that is definitely a point for her to be like, okay, this isn't for me anymore.
Yeah.
Because it takes two people to build a bridge.
Exactly.
She can't just show up doing her side and he's not making the effort to meet her in the middle.
Yeah.
Do you know
And
what I
if he's not, then
that's on him.
that speaks words. Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to because he's just not willing to for you.
It could be that he's not willing to for her, or it could be that he hasn't developed the strength to discipline himself the way it needs to. That's going to help the relationship.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I hear that. Let me ask you something. Let's take a shift. Yeah, let's talk about desires actually. Let's stay on that. So last time we spoke, I talked about how, as a generalization, there is an innate desire in males to indulge in variety.
Yes, I recall.
So after speaking about that, have you had any more thoughts, evolution of thoughts on that, about men, about how you'd approach something, about topics you would discuss with a guy before getting serious with him?
I think in terms of that, I think I have come more, I've just developed a understanding and an acceptance that men are just like
reluctant this. Acceptance, but an acceptance nevertheless.
Yeah. I don't think it's right. But I just, considering every situation that I know of, my personal situations and other people that I speak with,
yes,
I've just accepted this is just something men do, and this is what men are like.
I think it's really important that this isn't condoning it, and I'm not condoning that, and I want to be very clear, I'm not condoning that. I think it's more, I think a lot of the time women can take it a rejection of them. They think, oh, because I'm not enough for you. And it's like, babe, it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not about you. It's all about him.
I think a lot of men, they need to practice self-control.
Sure, true.
Like, just because you find someone attractive, or this is an issue, I think. I think it's soul ties. Because when a man has slept with a lot of people and then he finally finds a girl that he really, really likes, but he's got all of these connections with other people. So when they message him, he doesn't know how to say no, or he doesn't necessarily want to. Like, he knows he's found the girl for him, but he's still like, he doesn't want to lose those connections that he'd had before, if that makes sense.
I completely understand what you're saying, but I think that's more for women than for men.
More what, sorry? For women?
As in these soul ties.
Okay.
Like, men can very easily compartmentalize sex to the point that, as in, he can have sex with a woman and like, he has no connection to her. There's no emotional investment. Like, for him, it's literally just like going to the gym. Like, he works up a sweat, gets the release of endorphins, and he leaves without giving it a second thought. That's why. Look, I didn't make up this race, but they say the oldest profession, prostitution. They say that men don't pay for sex; they pay so they can leave.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it's like
no emotional attachment.
I think for women, that's definitely more the case. I think it is more the case. And that's not saying that guys can't have, obviously, connection with women they've had that history with, of course. But I don't think guys have that dilemma as much as women do in terms of how much he'd given himself to so many people that he's now struggling with this current one. Because, yeah, I have seen guys where, you know, they found the girl they want, and then any other casual things they had before, he's just like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, he does say no because he's not emotionally tied to her, so it's easier for him to say no for this one woman. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I can't relate
sure,
because I don't have soul ties, but
yes,
like, I can understand what you're saying. Yeah, I do think I agree with the women part. It's more emotional for them. Like, personally, I have to build a big connection with someone before I even think about kissing them, let alone but I do think, like, prostitution, the way it's so accessible and easy for men to just snap their fingers or message someone and it's there, I think that's a big issue. Like,
What do you mean?
in society, I don't like this.
Do you think it's an issue that men can do that, or do you think it's an issue that it is available to them?
Both. Like, just because it's available doesn't mean you need to choose it.
I agree, but who is providing that availability?
Yeah, and I think me personally, I think a lot of the people providing the act or the service,
the service doing God's work,
are to blame, because if you're not providing it, it's not available. Then it shows men need to actually work hard to secure something like that. Whereas if you're just having it on a plate, if you pay for it, like, it doesn't, you're just showing men that you don't need to work hard to build something with a woman or build a connection. It's just there available.
Yeah, it really enforces the idea that it's very transactional.
Yeah.
And of course, like you said, that doesn't help if it's supposed to be about connection.
Hope you really enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full episode where that clip is from, then I want you to click right here where you can watch the full episode. And if you're ready to claim your man today, enroll in my program below, and I'll see you there. Wishing you an amazing day.